Life is not always rainbows and butterflies. There is difficult situations that we run into. And so I think it's important to evaluate each relationship for what it is and what it means to you. If a relationship means a lot to you and is something that is close to you and worth something, it's definitely worth fighting for and looking deeper. Introspection is the ability to look inside of yourself to discover. It's kind of like going on a hike or going for a walk where you're, going through and doing some exploring. It can be a lot of fun. It can also be a little overwhelming and can be difficult, but overall, it should be an interesting experience. You should be able to discover new things about yourself and discover why you think the way you think or why you do the things you do. But when you're looking at relationships, it's important to figure out where it is that you might be at fault. Where did you go wrong? What could you do differently? Because relationships can mean a lot to us. When we're talking about the 6 basic human needs, love and connection is very important in our lives. And as much as you might feel like maybe you don't need relationships because people have only hurt you, that is a negative view of relationships, and that is a belief system that really should be squashed, because that's not true for every relationship. Just because you may have had that in your past doesn't mean that it needs to continue to be like that, nor does it mean that the new relationships that you make have to cause pain or cause problems. There's a lot of beautiful relationships for us to continue having and continue learning and growing and working through. So I really encourage you to kind of be introspective and first look at the situation and ask yourself, what happened and why did it happen? Is there a way for you to come up with an answer for why that happened? And then you want to ask yourself, what part did you play in that relationship not working out? Is there something you can do better? Is there something that you can do or be to make that relationship better? Is there forgiveness that maybe needs to be had? Is there communication that could maybe get better? There's a lot of things that you could look inside of yourself and possibly fix and make better. Whenever we get emotional in a situation, we tend to explode. We tend to go off into our feelings and get into our head and just spew emotions. So one of the things about effective communication is really just taking a deep breath, put the emotion to the side, and really deal with just factual information. What is it that happened? Aside from the feelings, what really happened? Because if your feelings got hurt, you might have to evaluate how you see yourself and your emotions. Maybe that person doesn't have the same emotions or the same feelings that you share. A study from, I believe it was around the 1970s, but it had to do with relationships and kindness being the number one thing that held relationships together. And that kindness was based on that we as humans put out bids every day. Come take a look at my backyard. Look how beautiful it is. And so I put out that bid because I want you to join my world. I want you to come and see the things that I see and enjoy the things I'm enjoying. And you have, as the person on the receiving end, you have 4 types of comments that you could respond with. 2 are negative and 2 are positive. You could be positive and say, oh, I'd like to see what you're seeing. Wow, that's beautiful. You could blow them off and say, really? You want me to come look outside? What's wrong with you? I'm busy playing a game, or I'm busy doing my own thing. There's a detrimental way and there's a positive way to answer to somebody who's putting out those bids. So pay attention to that. Number 2 would be your communication. So when you're communicating, effective communication is like throwing a football. One person throws, then the other person catches. You don't need multiple footballs in a 2-person catch game. You just need one. Someone once said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen twice as much as you speak. Maybe that's difficult for you. If it is, practice. Practice not saying anything. It's okay. You don't have to be right. This isn't about you being right. This is about a relationship and whether you want this relationship or not. And if you do, I encourage you to listen, hear them. You say to them, this is what I heard you say. Is this correct? And you put it in your own words. And if they say, yes, that is correct, or they say no, then let them follow up with what they mean. Because sometimes people in an emotional or highly emotional state don't always share exactly how they feel the right way. So give them a little bit of leeway, give them a little bit of room. Maybe they're highly emotional right now and sensitive. So give them a little time to figure it out and then come back to you and be able to share how they feel without the extra emotion. And so that would be effective communication. But if you've never trained yourself or learned how to deal with your emotions, you can easily let them get in the way of your communication. There was a time where I didn't really value relationships. I thought it was much easier to just keep my small circle, just myself, my wife, and a few people. But since I've been opening up and working through some of the things, I realize how valuable it is to have all these relationships. They are a little bit of work. It's kind of like gardening. You can have a vegetable or two. Think of how much better 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows of vegetables and add some fruit in there. It's very rewarding, but it's going to take a little bit more work. So keep in mind, relationships are work. Some take more work than others, but it's all in our hands. We get to decide the relationships we want and the ones that we don't want. Take this information, put it to use, and maybe forgive, maybe communicate, maybe work through that and get your friend back. Thanks for joining.